paying respects to Venerable Ācariya Juan. During that period, Venerable Ācariya Juan had charged a monk to tell Venerable Thoon to come visit, because he was in the process of constructing a bridge around Phu Thok to use for circumambulating with candles. I will briefly relate Venerable Ācariya Juan's background. He and I enjoyed a close relationship. He told me everything about his life as a layperson. He also told me about the events before he was ordained. Venerable Ācariya Juan's personality was different from that of Venerable Ācariya Juan. Venerable Ācariya Juan liked to speak in a playful manner and mixed in jokes at times. He told me that as a layperson, he had liked this one young lady, but they lived in different villages. One day, he attended a katina ceremony. He was using a paraffin lamp that gave off bright light. He spotted a young lady who was very beautiful. When the lamp's light touched her face, her skin appeared soft and ivory-colored. He could not resist. He had to go and talk to her. He asked where she lived, and she told him. After he returned home, he continued to think about that young lady. He just couldn't forget her. He determined that he would have to marry her. The next day, he went to visit the young lady he had set his mind on. Once he arrived at her house, the skin that had seemed beautiful had changed because she was afflicted with deer leprosy, or psoriasis. She was awful to look at. Later on, he took a liking to another young lady in the same village. She was the village beauty that all of the young men were sweet on. He decisively made up his mind. I will definitely marry this young lady. Venerable Ācariya Juan was observant by nature. He contemplated the matter of the young lady. This young lady is truly beautiful. After we are married, will her beauty last forever? He drew a comparison. Married women were once beautiful like this young lady. After having a family, that beauty vanished. They looked just like ordinary villagers. Though he was contemplating, he still felt love for her. He just had to marry her. Back in those days, there weren't any toilet rooms. You would have to go outside of the house and find a place to defecate in the forest, and the pigs would eat it. The thought came to him, what are this beautiful young lady's feces like? Are they beautiful like the person? One day, he hid in the forest in order to see her feces. The first day, he didn't make it in time. The pigs ate them all up first, but he was not disheartened. The next day, he hid just like before. After the young lady finished defecating, she hurriedly left. He hurriedly emerged from his hiding place to take a look. Upon viewing her feces, he saw both round and flat tapeworms crawling all over. He reflected, it is only the skin that makes this young lady beautiful. Inside, it is entirely dirty and filthy. The love he had for that young lady started to gradually wane. He used her feces as a contemplation metaphor, ubaya. After contemplating this young lady, he contemplated how other young ladies would all be the same way. I asked him, Venerable Ācariya, so it was feces that led you to ordain as a monk then? He answered, that's right. If I didn't see her pile of feces, I definitely could have married that young lady. This is another kind of Dhamma metaphor. Those skilled at thinking can see a pile of feces and use it as a wisdom metaphor. How must you think in order to effectively change your view? You must use your own methods of thinking. For instance, Venerable Ācariya Juan saw the pile of feces and was able to use it as a metaphor to develop right views. We have seen these things a lot, but have never talked about them in a Dhamma manner. There are numerous methods of thinking that will change wrong views to right views. Only we don't want to think or contemplate at all. We should use our own thoughts effectively. One night, as I settled into meditation, I saw a large pond that measured around 500 meters by 500 meters. In the middle of the pond stood a large and very beautiful palace. I observed a monk walking back and forth within that palace. I thought, which Acariya is that walking in that palace? Then the monk stood facing me. I looked at him and clearly saw that it was Venerable Ācariya Juan. I yelled over to him, Venerable Ācariya, I'm going to go to the palace to see you. Where is the bridge? He pointed to a bamboo pole that lay draped from the shoreline of the pond to the palace and said, here is the bridge. If you are capable, then come on over. It was a small stalk of dried bamboo floating on the water. There was no handrail to hold on to. I thought, if Venerable Ācariya Juan was able to make it, then I must be able to make it as well. Then I tried stepping on the bamboo. The bamboo appeared to be firm and unmoving. I walked briskly along the bamboo and reached the palace a moment later. I entered the palace and paid my respects. Venerable Ācariya Juan said, "Thoon, you are sufficiently capable that you made it to me." Thereafter, my mind emerged from the meditative state, and I discerned that Venerable Ācariya Juan had already awakened to the Dhamma as an arahant. When we had resided together, he had never spoken to me about the fruits of practice. He didn't exhibit any signs of being an arahant whatsoever. He was a monk who had concealed the secret of his virtue very well. He comported himself just like any ordinary monk or novice. He acted normally. There was no indication of his being an arahant at all. Venerable Ācariya Juan's character and Venerable Ācariya Juan's character were completely different. Venerable Ācariya Juan was the deep water, deep shadow type, while Venerable Ācariya Juan was the deep water, shallow shadow type. That is why the way they physically and verbally expressed themselves differed. That night, I appraised Venerable Ācariya Juan and instantly knew that he was already an arahant. Ordinarily, I am not one to examine others to see who possesses virtue and who does not possess virtue. I am not interested in those matters. Only if there is cause to do so will I consider the implication of the matter. That's all. The following day, I told Ācariya Juan about the nimitta. After I finished, he asked me, "What did you think of it, Venerable Thoon?" I replied, "After I came out of meditation, I then knew that you had already attained release, Venerable Ācariya." He said, "Look, Thoon, I have never told anyone about myself. Since you came to know about me like this, I will go ahead and just say it. I attained release a long time ago. I have never told anyone about it. I merely implied it to Luang Por Thoon just so that he would know. I didn't say it straight out like I am with you right now." He said, "Now that you know about me, don't tell anyone else about it, all right?" I promised and said, "I will not tell anyone." Venerable Ācariya Juan has since passed away. I am only writing about him so that later generations can know about it. If Venerable Ācariya Juan were still alive, I would not tell anyone about him because I already gave him my word. I didn't ask him when he had attained enlightenment, though, because it is improper for junior monks to question senior monks. Afterward, Venerable Ācariya Juan told me about when he was with Luang Por Man, namely how Luang Por Man taught mental cultivation practice, Bhavana Patipati, and how he taught his students. Luang Por Man was very skilled in teaching both methods for meditative calm, samatha, and insight development, vipassana. However, for the most part, people focus on the meditative techniques and don't understand the methods of cultivating continuous insight, vipassana, or the methods of using wisdom to contemplate. Venerable Ācariya Juan proceeded to ask me, "When you awakened to the Dhamma, where did it happen?" I told him all about it, just as I told Luang Por Thoon. Then Venerable Ācariya Juan said, "Very few are capable of awakening to the Dhamma like this, because these days, people don't believe that people can practice mental cultivation effectively. Most people assume that the era of the noble ones, Arya Buddha, is over. Most people assume that the arahants must perform miracles and exhibit magical powers, iti, and that every arahant must be the same. That is actually not how it is. During the Buddha's time, the arahants who were capable of exhibiting magic powers were few in number. Mostly, they were just capable of extinguishing mental intoxication, asava. In this era, there are no arahants who are capable of exhibiting magic powers. Since there aren't any, people assume that there are no arahants. That's why they believe that the era of arahants is over. If you were to tell them that arahants still exist, they wouldn't believe it. The best course is not to talk about arahants with anyone. There is nothing to gain from talking about it, because this is how it is supposed to be in this era." Though Venerable Ācariya Juan possessed supreme virtue, no one knew because he hid himself well. He got along with everyone and didn't have any problems.